The 11.1 info drop is here, and we need to talk about the tier set for warriors. Obviously, DPS warriors, we don't talk about tanking anymore. That last season where I tanked was absolutely horrible. It was probably like the worst season to come in on tanking, to be fair. But first and foremost, we need to talk about the insanely good 2% DPS gain you definitely get whenever you look like a total badass, and the aesthetics of the new tier set is awesome. Very, very happy. Way better than our previous one, and a lot of individual pieces will go well with other sets. And most importantly, just the set as a whole, as a collective, looks really, really good too. This is probably my least favorite of the colorations, but this hero set looks absolutely awesome, and the mythic set as well. Both look fucking ridiculous. It's so good. Very, very glad and happy we got a badass looking tier set. Hopefully you guys agree. I don't think anyone that plays a warrior would disagree that it doesn't look good, so fingers crossed. Now we need to obviously talk about, I'll actually talk about some of the key changes. There was a few patch note changes that we've seen, but I'll run over the major ones. So first and foremost, survivability. The endurance training used to give stamina and stuff. That's been rolled into reinforced plates. So now you get stamina and armor. Really, really good. The armor obviously still feeds into armor to the teeth for more strength. Yay, cool, fine. Thunderous Words had its bleed window reduced from 30% increased damage down to 20%, and that's probably partially due to the Reckless Abandon change. This now allows you to use either Crushing Blow or Bloodbath. Not just one of each like it is currently, but it's been redesigned entirely, where during the window of recklessness, you just get to use both and full send it. It's crazy, right? Cool. With that in mind, one, they're kind of going back to what they had it originally as, where depending on how you've built your Fury Warrior, you'll more than likely just be sending one particular one, not having to use one of both. This means that things like Depths of Insanity become a lot more important, because instead of 12 seconds of a window, you have 16 seconds of a window, and you can just absolutely pump the shit out of these empowered abilities. And Bright of Ferocity also sort of comes back on the menu. I mean, it's half the time you run it anyway, but it lost a lot of value when it reduced how much your rampage chance was to proc it. But again, if you get this 4 seconds window of a recklessness proc, that will then feed into Reckless Abandon once more, where you get 4 seconds to full send that. So expect weak auras to have giant, shiny, flashy shit basically yelling at you whenever recklessness happens to be up, whether it's through a proc or otherwise. So that's the Reckless Abandon change. Lastly, you'll also see that Avatar, the choice node capstone, Titan's Torment specifically, got reworked as well. So instead of just sending another free Odin's Fury for you, this was causing a lot of like snap burst to aggro. Not just aggro, I mean the whole damage profile was very front loaded in terms of, you know, for the first 4 seconds of an encounter, you're just doing this ridiculous massive amount of AoE damage, and then it tapered off after 8 seconds basically. But they've reworked it now where when you hit Avatar, your Rampage's rage cost is reduced by 20, so that means it's only 60 instead of 80, and the Bloodthirst cooldown is reduced by 1 second as well. Now, really, really good changes. There's a lot of exciting like potential with how this is all playing out, but I'm a little bit sad because I have a feeling what's going to happen is Slayer's just going to run anger management and just go for the full crazy CDR mode, and then Mountain Thane gets all the juicy good fun stuff with Reckless Abandon. I don't mind Mountain Thane, but I'd prefer to run Slayer. It's just a personal preference, but I'm going to run whatever does the best damage. Now, the exciting thing, let's talk about Mountain Thane. The synergy with the new change to Reckless Abandon is it gives Bloodbath a bleed of its own. It has a Bloodbath bleed that's not required for Cold Steel Hot Blood. So there's separate entities. So you're going to have 2 bleeds as a Fury build when you run Reckless Abandon. That funneled into your Thunderous Roar window. Avatar as well directly reduces the cooldown of Bloodthirst, which means that Bloodbath, the empowered version, will also have a reduced cooldown. So during that 16 or 12 seconds of recklessness, whether or not you get Depths of Insanity, you're going to have this, we're just going to assume you're getting it. So 16-second window of just really short CD bloodbaths that are just blasting the shit out of multiple types of bleeds. So the Cold Steel Hot Blood version, as well as the Bloodbath new bleed that we get thanks to Reckless Abandon. The cherry on top as well is that when you do bloodbath a target that's already affected by your bloodbath bleed, it extends the bleed by 6 seconds. So you're going to be able to go 6 seconds to 11 seconds to 16 seconds to 21 seconds, etc., etc. Obviously, it's not going to be perfectly 6, 12, 18, 24 because it costs a global cooldown to then apply the next. Like you're still losing time over time. But yeah, that's really good. That synergizes amazingly well. I can imagine with Meat Cleaver and how well the Thunder Blast is, thanks to running Mountain Thane, you're just going to be able to Thunder Blast shit. You've got Meat Cleaver on everything. You're sending 2 bleeds because one bloodbath, is critting, and that crit will proc your normal bloodbath bleed as well as a cold still hot blood. In higher keys, your bloodbath on the same prior target is going to then spread to multiple targets and extend all of their durations. I hope, fingers crossed. That sounds really appealing and really sick. And the best part is the cherry on top is you would also pop Ravager, which then has Unhinged to proc even more free bloodbaths during Ravager, during Recklessness, where your Reckless Abandon is forcing bloodbaths, which then apply the bleed. Like, I actually see a window of 16 seconds. You're getting like 15 plus bloodbaths within that time frame, all cleaving, and you throw your Thunder Blast every so often to maintain your Meat Cleaver stacks. This sounds absolutely sick, but I just wish Slayer had a bit more going for it. The synergies all sort of tend to break down with Slayer because you have to run Bladestorm. The downside is with Bladestorm, you're kind of going, well, I don't really want to Bladestorm during Recklessness because during Recklessness with Reckless Abandon, you want to be using that time with these empowered, like you've only got 16 seconds or 12 seconds to use Bloodbath and Crushing Blow, so you want to use it on that, not spend 4 seconds spinning around in a circle, right? Likewise, you don't want to use it in Avatar, although you traditionally did for the extra damage. It would feel kind of janky because while Avatar's rolling, if you're running the Titan's Torment, you want to be using that time to get the cheaper rampages, right? And that's why I think you'll find Slayer will actually prefer Anger Management, because then you can run Titan's Torment and have a cheaper version of Rampage's Rage cost. You're just able to dump the shit out of lots and lots of Rampages. That'll feed into Anger Management, which then feeds into even shorter Blade Storms. I think you'll find that, yeah, if any tuning-wise, if Slayer is the go at all, then you'll probably find that it will end up being Anger Management. But then that Mountain Thane ability with the Reckless Abandon and how everything just beautifully synchronizes where you can absolutely hammer the living shit out of a lot of bloodbaths in a short window and then cleave them out and get free procs with Unhint. Like, it just sounds like a pipe dream, and I'm very excited to see how much damage it does in AoE. Scared it will be nerfed, we'll deal with it. Now, last but not least, let's actually talk about the tier set bonuses themselves. Now, we'll touch a bit on arms, because obviously Fury is my main sort of shtick, but it's at least important to mention on arms as well. So you'll see that our little gimmick is around winning streak. So all melee specs get this winning streak proc that's based on something that you're doing with your particular spec and class. So in this case for arms, the winning streak is done by your spells and abilities. You build up a Mortal Strike and Cleave up to 10 times, and it's 2%. Now, unfortunately, for arms, it's going to be entirely dependent on the RNG of Overpower. So as you can see, Overpower will have a 15% chance to remove that buff. And this is the part that I really, really don't like. I understand it's thematic because it's the whole gambling tier. You're talking about Galagio friggin' ripoff. It's all the goblin stuff. Thematically on point. I get it. Just as a player, I don't like not having agency in my hands. And I feel like I'll be gimped when the other person happens to get really lucky and over a 3-minute fight never loses winning streak and keeps 20% increased mortal strike damage the entire time because he just got lucky and none of his overpowers consumed it. Whereas I didn't get lucky and I lost it like 5 times and therefore my damage is less because of RNG. That's the part that pisses me off, and I hope they at least sort of revisit it. And then you'll see the 4 set for arms is when your winning streak ends, the overpower deals additional damage and recharges even faster for 2 seconds per stack of the winning streak you had. Cool. This feels like a bit of a lackluster, but it is increased damage, right? So you get to pump it a lot, and that means you'll have quicker GCDs, because remember, Overpower is a shorter GCD by design. So that's at least kind of cool. I can understand where they're going for. At least there's a benefit. For the Fury side of things, I feel less happy, but we'll read it. First and foremost, it is annoying that Fury's version of it is that our spells and abilities beef up our Rampage. Really, really good. S tier. Love me some Rampage. Up to 20% as well. And then that in turn will feed into extra little goodies like Slaughtering Strikes, where that gives us a lot of Rampage damage. There's a realm in the world here where Rampage is looking pretty fucking juicy and really nice. However, it is also Rampage that is the caveat that can have the chance to reduce the winning streak, or remove, the winning streak. So its own ability is what's going to potentially cause it to RNG out and lose it. Whereas that, I mean, you could just not overpower until you get your stuff back. And that sounds really good in execute phase, when you pretty much could afford to not overpower. You just execute twice and Mortal Strike, and execute twice and Mortal Strike, and then you can forget all about overpower, and meanwhile your Mortal Strike is doing 20% extra damage the entire time during execute phase, right? There's at least that possibility. Whereas for this, I mean, Rampage is its own doom as well as its own buff. Kind of a bit janky, a bit unfortunate. The fourth set then is whenever you gain a stack of winning streak, you have an even chance to either cause your next Bloodthirst to deal more damage, or your next Raging Blow to deal more damage. And then they have extra effects like the 25% increased crit chance on the Bloodthirst, very thematic to how Bloodthirst always works. And likewise, the increased rage generation for Raging Blow, which is a bit meh, but cool. At least every time you get a winning streak, you're buffing one of those two abilities all the time. But again, it feeds into that RNG, right? If I run the crazy Mountain Thane AoE build, and I'm just all about bloodthirsting with this beautiful new bloodbath bleed and stuff, and I'll Rampage every so often, sure, but it's mainly, there just to bleed the shit out of everything, basically. Again, if I get RNG lucky and I've procced over the course of 1 minute 70% of my procs to the Bloodthirst one, and I get that to have extra 15% increased damage and a higher crit chance, which means more cold still hot blood bleeds, as well as more bloodbath, super duper bleeds, because there's doing more damage, right? Like, that sounds awesome. But then if I happen to get a bad string of luck, which again, I understand, it's thematic to what the tiers are supposed to be. It's just the feeling of it in actual gameplay is going to feel really bad. If you got a bad string of, RNG, and your DPS happens to be worse than it was last week because you just got a bad run, right? That sounds a bit bad. But they are our tier sets, so that's what we're dealing with at least now. I'm sure there might be some tweaks and changes over these next few weeks before 11.1 comes out. Really, really excited about the Reckless Abandon change. Honestly, I loved Season 3 in Dragonflight. I found that bleed and heavy bloodthirst kind of a build really enjoyable, and this is bringing back some of those vibes. And I really think the synergy for Mountain Thane with Reckless Abandon, and how Unhinged will proc off your Ravager, and how the change to Titan's Torment all feeds into each other really nicely with Mountain Thane. Very, very excited to see how that'll play out. And it's a bit of a feels bad for Slayer, but it is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below, and fucking peace.